everybody, and welcome to Raising Vibrations with myself, Simon. Today we're going to be continuing with the Pluto series, and we are going to be, or I'm going to be basically sharing with you my insights and understandings regarding having placement, or regarding having Pluto in your 7th house or in Libra. Okay, and before I go ahead and actually jump into this juicy stuff of what this placement symbolizes and means and the type of sort of soul's experiences, I highly recommend that you watch the introduction video. The reason being is because the introduction video itself gives a very clear perspective of what Pluto symbolizes. And so therefore, when you actually watch this video itself, you can understand, firstly, the keywords that I'm using, but also getting a firmer grasp on why you would be wanting to look at Pluto in terms of your astrology chart, okay? Then the second one is that this applies if you have Pluto in your 7th house, Pluto in Libra generation, so that was born between 1972 and 1984 in the beginning, January. And if you have Pluto transiting your 7th house, in other words, it's moving into your 7th astrological house, okay? All right, so what are we dealing with here? Now, for somebody like myself, I actually have Pluto in Libra, so I have a very sort of closely associated symbolism with regards to this actual placement. And the major thing that Pluto in Libra, or Pluto in the 7th house, is dealing with here from an evolutionary perspective is that your unconscious emotional security patterns and desires and empowerment and wounding is linked with relationships, okay? And the myriad of different types of relationships that one has within their lives, okay? And this is a big area for you. Of course, it's your whole entire life. So one of the psychological attachments is, I need to be in a relationship to be complete. And if I'm in a relationship, then I'm complete, then I am able to actually function as a human being, or as to function as a soul. And that's okay, because it's through the archetype of relationships that you're trying to understand yourself through. However, what generally happens here is that because your mission, your understanding, your psychological person, etc., is forming relationships in that way, you're trying to understand the nature of different values and other people's value systems that are associated with that. So you're exposing yourself to as many relationships, or a relationship particularly, and learning about yourself in relation to other people's values, ideas, perspectives, independent feelings and freedoms, etc. And the codependency comes in, which is the archetype of feeling like I'm complete within relationships, is that I myself, not me personally, but I myself, as in if you're speaking to yourself, cannot understand myself if I'm not in a relationship, because that sense of values, that sense of idea, etc., is not there to bounce my sense of perception off. So it creates this need to be in relationships. And then there's this codependency that comes with it. And so sometimes through this archetype of trying to understand yourself, you're connecting to other people's values and then identifying yourself as those values. So you're learning how to be able to differentiate between whose values are whose ideas are whose, different opinions, etc., etc. And you're learning to be able to step into your own, okay? So Pluto in the 7th house, in terms of your evolutionary intention, is to understand yourself in the archetype of relationships, but to always be able to differentiate between whose is who. Is this your relationship? Or should I say, is this your values? Is this what you think? In contrast to another person. And contrast is a really, really big word that is linked, of course, with this placement. Because as I said again, the soul's desire is to understand itself through this process. And when you're not able to discern or be able to get that contrast, you can merge yourself and lose yourself. You can be either too devoted or completely and utterly the opposite in that sense. You can not even have any association with the relationships, and so therefore you have this complete and utter isolation. And that's one of the things that's a major, major theme with Pluto in the 7th house of Pluto in Libra, is learning how to create balance and fairness and harmony. And your biggest sort of psychological wounding, your biggest sort of psychological experience is being able to understand yourself in a balanced and harmonic way. So your tendencies in life are to be very extreme. You're going from one extreme to the other. And it's those constant extremes in your life that you're learning to find, where am I going in a way that I'm not doing it in an extreme way? How am I doing it in a sort of balanced way? How can I create flow in my life? How can I create harmony in my life? Are my choices and decisions creating circumstances that are causing an imbalance in my life? So that's kind of like the spiritual, like a process attached with this placement, is how am I working through extremes? How am I creating balance? And then, of course, also through the mundane sort of world in terms of relationships, how am I understanding myself in contrast to another person? And with Pluto, of course, there again is that unconscious emotional attachment. I am only feeling complete in relationships. So your need is to establish and find a relationship that is completely and utterly relevant for your own personal needs, but also where you can learn to respect the other person so that you create this harmony, where you learn to create fairness, etc., etc. So that's a big process here. Now, another thing that's also attached to this archetype is the feeling of wanting to actualize your special purpose. And it's very important in this lifetime to be able to have a relationship that supports your independent desires, to actualize yourself in a very independent way, so that you are able to actually create from these impulsive desires that are initiating change. Because Pluto in Libra, or Pluto in the 7th house, is a soul that is initiating change in their life. So it is a cardinal sign. It is a shifting sign. So you do need to develop total inner security in order to create these necessary changes in your life so that you can make a new start, as it were. So it's a really interesting placement to have Pluto in that sense. And I highly recommend that if you are wanting to understand more about this process and understand your nature of your soul itself, as I explained in the introduction video, look at your placement of your Pluto, okay? Fantastic. Well, if you want to explore more about the karmic associations with this archetype, please contact me with and book a service with myself, or if you just want to chat about your astrology, that's okay. All my information is in the description below, and you can just, like I said, use the booking system and connect. I'd love to hear about your story as well in that sense. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and share it amongst anybody that you feel will enjoy this. Other than that, take care. Bye-bye.